alternate universe, the bizarro world, the Twilight Zone. When it comes to football, they are all quite real, if only in the mind of Dave Dameshek. This is not the NFL. This is the NFL.
That's right. Like I say, the history of the NFL is marked by countless examples of how one event causes a domino reaction for years after. But all right, let's focus on Aaron Rodgers. Do you realize that if back in the summer of 2008, the Packers had allowed Brett Favre to come back when he unretired, you'll remember, Mark Sanchez would now be battling Ryan Fitzpatrick for playing time in Buffalo. Let me tell you how that easily could have happened. Brett Favre, he announces he slipped up when he retired a couple of months prior and says he's coming back, and he assumes to the Packers. But Ted Thompson and Mike McCarthy say, no, we're grooming a youngster named Aaron Rodgers for the gig, and we also just drafted a couple more QBs. We assumed you were gone. It's obvious now, like I say, that they made the right choice. But what if they'd given in to Favre's demands? Rodgers would have wanted out of Wisconsin, ASAP. And since we know the Jets wanted a QB, let's assume that they make a trade to get Aaron Rodgers. Now, in 2008, the Jets go 9-7, but they started out, you may recall, 8-3, but then they lost 4 of their last 5 after Favre got hurt. So Rodgers would have gotten them to 10 wins, right? I think that's a safe assumption. He's obviously a talented guy. If he hadn't gotten hurt, let's say they get to double-digit wins. And with the future now looking bright with a relatively young QB, thanks to the young gunslinger named Rodgers, Eric Mangini, the coach at the time, keeps his job, which in turn means the Jets wouldn't have hired Baltimore defensive coordinator Rex Ryan. Rex and his feet would have then ended up having to walk across the continental U.S. to the East Bay to join the Oakland Raiders. It's worked out well for Rex with the Jets, but when you think about it, wouldn't it have been even more spectacular with the Raiders? Rex Ryan. At the very least, Oakland's color scheme would have been better for him because black is very slimming. Anywho, so the Jets wouldn't have needed, because they now have Aaron Rodgers, they wouldn't have needed to trade up in the 2009 draft to get Cleveland's 5th overall pick. So where would Mark Sanchez have ended up going? Forget the bright lights and foxy ladies in Manhattan. Well, New Jersey. But either way, he instead winds up in northwestern New York, eating the wings, wearing a toque on his hat to fight off the cold and such. And without the Jets O-line and the dynamite wide receivers and that running game, he'd have stunk up the joint, like most young QBs do. He wouldn't have hit the ground running. And in fact, he has had some pretty nasty stretches in spite of all the talent surrounding him with the Jets. So he would have fallen on his face. So in other words, Mark Sanchez, the next time you see Ted Thompson and Mike McCarthy, I think you owe them both a big hug. And that's, you see, how the NFL works.
This